So hi there, EnthusiastiCon. I was thinking I usually have like an opening slide when I take a picture with Bela, the fox, at the venue, and then that's what I open with. But this is actually from earlier, from a conference for a meeting. I want you to notice so these plushies are puppets. And I managed to find, this is my manager, Javi, and I managed to find her a puppet duckling something that basically has 3 ducklings on it. Like, don't ask me who came up with that idea. But yeah, like ducklings are very close to our hearts because, my name is István Szmozsánszky, and now you know why it's Flaki for short. That's my Twitter handle if you want to do. I'm a JavaScript developer, trainer, whatever. I do DevRel at Mozilla or for Mozilla. Like, ask me about it. It's complicated. But I'm also a Mozilla tech speaker. This is like the blue hoodie and the hearts. And we were like the very first group of Mozilla tech speakers. We were like the trial group. And that's, we ended up like with these ducklings of our manager, which we proudly wear this moniker ever since. I'm a Tesla project member. I'm going to be talking a bit about that later as well. But I'm basically do JavaScript and web development, and this is a talk about JavaScript and hardware. And if you get the reference, 2,560 bytes should be enough for anybody. Like, we still don't know if it's like true or not. Like, this is supposed to be said about DOS by no one else but the big head of the Microsoft company, that 640 kilobytes should be enough for everybody in memory. Well, you can take a guess whether it was enough or not, but we're going to be talking about these kind of stuff. So JavaScript on hardware. So what do we really mean by hardware? And so there is a lot of like complexity to unpack when people are talking about hardware. There are all kinds of single board computers and microchips and microcontrollers. What I'm going to be talking about is mostly embedded hardware. That is the tiniest of the microchips that you can use. If you ever seen, this is a ARDUINO. This is a microcontroller that actually is running JavaScript. It's a very interesting fashion of JavaScript. Ask me about it if you're curious. And it's literally a size of a thumb drive, and it's a full-blown computer. There's also the BBC microbit, which I have with me today. I'm going to be showing you in a bit later, which have become very popular. Every 7th grader gets this in the UK. So you can run code on these microcontrollers. Ideally, you can even run JavaScript. The microbit actually runs a JavaScript using the JavaScript engine, which is like the super small JavaScript runtime that's Samsung developed and open sourced. And actually, like, you get a bunch of JavaScript running on microcontroller side hardware. So this is, if anybody has a Pebble watch here, your watch is actually running JavaScript. So Pebble watch, a year or 2 ago, they actually translated all their C code base. They actually made JavaScript run on the watch itself, and the watch faces are actually powered by JavaScript now. There's a lot of reasons you would want to do that, but it's JavaScript on a freaking watch, and Pebble might be defunct now, but actually the new Fitbit watches that are just started being releasing, you can also develop watch apps and like watch faces for these in JavaScript. But I'm going to be talking about this kind of hardware. So these are very powerful, like modern microchips. These microcontrollers I'll be talking about are these microcontrollers, the 18 mega 32 U4 and a few others. You might have known this from being the Arduino Micro. And basically these chips are in somewhat about the same level of processing capacity. They're a bit faster. It's like a 16 megahertz processor, which is way better than whatever you would find on a Game Boy, but they're very limited in memory. Like the runtime memory on this microchip is like 2.5 kilobytes. And even the program memory that you can flash the primary program onto it is like 30 kilobytes. So we're going to be talking about how you put games onto 32 kilobytes of flash memory and 2 kilobytes of memory. But before, and I created an open source project for that called CLOUDUBOY. I would like to show you. But before that, we have to go back like 2016 to tell you about a bit about moderations. So how to learn coding, like we did like this weekend boot camp. We were trying to teach people like basic web skills, and while CSS and JavaScript, CSS and HTML is comparatively rather easy to teach and has a lot of resources, even for non-coders who haven't been coding before, haven't been programming in like any sense before. JavaScript is a challenge in that sector. And so this is when I came up with this idea and wrote like this. This was the first, as like, why not teach JavaScript while teaching people, how to write JavaScript? By a very simple game. I let them build a very simple game that keeps them engaged, and then still they like stealthily like learn some of the basic programming concepts. So this is like 100 lines of JavaScript and works in the browser. And then the other part of CLOUDUBOY comes from the hardware side. So as I mentioned, I worked with a team called Tessel. I started, when was it, 2015 is the first time. I was always a web developer, so never really done any hardware. So I started like playing around with this Tessel, which actually you could program in JavaScript. And then came this Kickstarter campaign, and this came the magical ARDUINO, which was promising to be an open source gaming platform that you can put into your pocket. Fortunately, the problem with that one was that you would have to use the Arduino IDE to code it, just like with anything else. And Arduino revolutionized this area. But really, like coding C++ is not the same as I got used to on the web. So CLOUDUBOY was initially born as like a C++ editor in the browser to make this easier, but it actually ended up being so much more. So CLOUDUBOY is basically a fully browser-based editor for games with which you can create your own games. Not these kind of games mostly, but like more like these. And you get to share them because all the games you're going to be creating are just JavaScript and web technologies. So they're just a web page. And then you get to put them onto devices like this one. And what happened to my camera? Are you kidding me?
Maybe because Zoom is disabling?
No, there you go. Yeah, I just had a nap. My camera had a nap. There you go. So welcome to CLOUDUBOY. So my camera is having a hard time today. So yes, this is basically the device that you are seeing is running embedded code on a microcontroller. And what you did is you started working in this editor. You put a sprite onto the screen. There's a tutorial that teaches you the basics. And then you want more aliens. So you could just copy and paste all the code, but you could also learn about, variables a bit and maybe a bit of like loops and, put more aliens onto the screen. And then you go on and then you learn about branches and ifs, because what you need to do is you have to make sure you figure out which buttons you press, and to make sure in your code, make sure that the character moves in a way. So you're learning about ifs and branches in the same time. And then you actually ended up accidentally created a whole game. And it also lets you like create and edit sprites. So it actually becomes easier to create all the graphics assets for like such small pixel screens, because you cannot really just put a JPEG onto 30 kilobytes of memory, right? And what it helps you, and how these games actually get from the browser into your microcontroller, is actually takes the JavaScript code you just created and converts it into Arduino code, that's C++. The magic for that is well, it's not magic, but actually I kind of seen the theme for today was mostly what the computers are good at and what the computer can do for you, let the computer do it for you. So this is basically it. We actually are inferring the types from the JavaScript you wrote and using those types to create a C++ code and then compiling that to machine code, which also lets us not just put on this device itself, but, you know, put it onto other devices. It's because it's just a code translation step. So you can have the same game running on a completely different device like this one, and, you know, shoot aliens out of the sky. And I just mentioned like the BBC microbit. We actually have BBC microbit support. By we, I mean like CLOUDUBOY. And if I can just plug this in and hope that it's gonna work. So the BBC microbit has a bunch of sensors built in, but it doesn't really have a whole lot of buttons. And you need at least 3 buttons to control your character in fire. So what happens here is you actually control the character by tilting the device. So as I tilt the device, the character moves and also the screen moves. There you go. So let's see if this will work. So as all right, let's just not worry about that. You can try it with me. So you can actually use the device, and as you tilt the device, you just detect all those things because you don't have more buttons. And it's just the web, so you can actually go to this URL and try the same game on your phone or your web browser. The same goes to the other games as well. And if you want to see any of those links or ask me more about it, like there is a link to the slides on there. And I hope you enjoyed the kittens.